I thought Brad Mondo's butterfly cut was just one haircut until I discovered what you can actually create with those layers. So I tried the technique at home and turned it into several completely different looks. But one of them surprised me more than I expected. And that's exactly what makes the butterfly cut so fascinating. It isn't simply about chopping your hair into a bunch of short layers. It's about where those layers begin, how they frame the face, how much movement they create, and how they work with your natural hair. Change just one of those details, and you can go from soft and sophisticated to dramatic and glamorous. So today, we're taking inspiration from Brad Mondo's famous butterfly cut approach and exploring several beautiful variations, from shorter, bouncier styles to longer, flowing layers. And if you're over 50, pay close attention, because some versions can add incredible movement and softness, while others may actually make your hair look thinner or your face look heavier. But there's one particular variation I saved for the very end because it has the perfect combination of volume, movement, and elegant face framing, and it may be the most flattering of them all. Before we get into it, subscribe and stay with me until the end because you don't want to miss that final transformation. And tell me in the comments, would you ever try a butterfly cut at home? Haircut 1. The classic butterfly cut. Let's start with the haircut that started all the fascination, the classic butterfly cut. If you've seen Brad Mondo's butterfly cut transformations, you already know why this style gets so much attention. There's something almost magical about watching long hair suddenly develop shape, movement, and volume without losing that feeling of length. The secret is the layering. Instead of having one heavy curtain of hair hanging from the shoulders, the hair is shaped into different levels. Shorter pieces around the face create softness, while longer layers underneath preserve the overall length. And for a woman over 50, that distinction can make a huge difference. Because at this stage of life, many women don't necessarily want to lose their long hair. They just want it to look intentional again. Maybe you've noticed that your hair doesn't behave quite the way it did at 30. Perhaps it feels a little finer around the temples. Maybe the ends don't look as full. Or maybe you've kept the same long hairstyle for years, only to realize that it's beginning to look more flat than elegant. That's where the butterfly shape can become interesting. The movement created by the layers can keep long hair from looking heavy or lifeless. And when the face framing pieces are positioned well, they can create a soft transition around the cheeks and jaw instead of allowing the hair to simply fall straight down beside the face. But here's the important part. Don't assume that more layers automatically mean more volume. They don't. If too much hair is removed from the wrong areas, especially when the hair is already fine, the opposite can happen. The ends can look wispy, the crown can become too short, and suddenly you're spending more time trying to make the haircut behave. The most flattering version isn't necessarily the most dramatic one. For mature hair, softness matters. You want the layers to look like they belong together. You want movement without chaos. You want volume without creating a hairstyle that requires an hour of styling every morning. And that brings us to the next variation, because what happens when you take that same butterfly concept and make it shorter? That's where things get really interesting. Haircut 2. The soft layered bob. Now we're taking the butterfly concept in a completely different direction. Imagine the movement of a butterfly cut, but with the sophistication and practicality of a bob. This is the soft layered bob. And honestly, this may be one of the most wearable options for women who are tired of maintaining long hair but aren't quite ready for a very short haircut. The beauty of this style is that it doesn't have to look severe. A traditional bob can sometimes create a strong, almost geometric line. That's beautiful on the right person, but if you're looking for something softer and more forgiving, adding carefully placed layers can completely change the personality of the cut. Suddenly, the hair moves. Instead of sitting like a solid shape around the head, it has air. And that little bit of movement can make the entire appearance feel fresher. This is particularly useful if you've reached that frustrating point where your hair seems to have lost some of its natural bounce. You may remember having hair that practically styled itself when you were younger. You could wash it, brush it, let it dry, and somehow it still looked good. Then one day you realize you're standing in front of the mirror thinking, why does my hair suddenly look so flat? You're not imagining it. Hair changes. Texture changes. Density can change. The way the strands respond to products and heat can change. And sometimes the haircut that worked beautifully for you 10 years ago simply isn't cooperating anymore. That's why a softer, more structured shape can be so refreshing. The layered bob gives the hair somewhere to go. The shorter length makes it easier to manage, while the layers prevent it from looking too stiff. And the face framing pieces can be customized so they don't simply stop at the widest part of your face. That's a little detail people often overlook. A beautiful haircut isn't only about the back. It's about what happens around your face when you turn your head, smile, talk, walk, or simply look in the mirror. You want those front pieces to move naturally rather than behaving like two curtains hanging beside your cheeks. And here's another advantage. This style can look polished without looking overly done. That's important, because most women over 50 aren't trying to look like they're attending a red carpet event every Tuesday morning. They want to look attractive when they're running errands. They want to look good when they meet friends for lunch. They want to take a photograph without immediately thinking, why does my hair look so flat? The best haircut is often the one that makes everyday life easier. And our next variation takes that idea and stretches it just a little further. Haircut 3. The butterfly lob. If the bob feels a little too short and the classic butterfly cut feels a little too long, meet the middle ground, the butterfly lob. The lob, or long bob, has become such a popular choice because it gives you the elegance of longer hair without all the weight and maintenance. Now add those soft butterfly-inspired layers, and suddenly you've got a haircut that can look completely different depending on how you style it. Where it's smooth and it looks sophisticated. Add a little wave, and suddenly it becomes romantic. Give the crown some lift, and it feels younger and more energetic. And let it air dry naturally, and you can get that effortless, I didn't spend an hour doing my hair effect. That versatility is exactly why I love this length for mature women. Because after 50, your life isn't necessarily about choosing between short hair and long hair. You have options. And sometimes the best option is the one that gives you a little bit of everything. The lob also gives you something psychologically important, a change without feeling like you've completely changed your identity. This is something women don't always talk about. Your hair can become part of how you see yourself. You may have worn it long for 20 years. Maybe your children know you with that hairstyle. Maybe your partner has never seen you with anything else. Maybe every photograph of you has the same familiar silhouette. So when someone says, why don't you just cut it all off? It isn't always that simple. You don't necessarily want to become a completely different person. You just want to look refreshed. And that's where a medium-length layered haircut can be such a comfortable transition. It gives you movement without demanding a dramatic transformation. It also gives the stylist plenty of room to work with your individual features. Maybe you need more softness around the jaw. Maybe your forehead looks better with longer pieces around the face. Maybe your neck is an area you'd rather not emphasize. A good haircut can take all of that into account. And that's something I want you to remember throughout this entire video. There isn't a single haircut that automatically makes every woman look younger. The goal isn't to find the haircut that is young. The goal is to find the haircut that makes you look vibrant, intentional, and comfortable in your own appearance. Because those are very different things. And our next haircut focuses heavily on one of the most powerful parts of that equation, the face. Haircut 4. The face framing layered cut. This is where things become much more personalized. Forget the idea that face framing simply means cutting two short pieces at the front. Beautiful face framing is more strategic than that. The right layers can guide the eye. They can soften a strong jaw. They can bring attention toward the eyes. They can create the illusion of movement around the cheeks. And they can make an otherwise ordinary haircut feel custom-made. That's why I think this variation deserves a place on the list. Imagine medium to long hair with layers that begin around a flattering point near the face and gradually blend into the rest of the haircut. Nothing harsh. Nothing overly chopped. Just a gradual transition. This can be especially beautiful for women who feel that their face has changed over the years. And let's be honest, almost everyone's face changes. You may notice it first in photographs. You look at an old picture and think, my face used to look completely different. That's normal. As we age, facial proportions and softness can change, and hairstyles that once framed our faces beautifully may no longer create the same effect. But here's the good news. Your haircut can change with you. You don't have to fight your face. You don't have to hide every feature. You can simply create a shape that works with where you are now. That's one reason I dislike the idea that women over 50 need to follow a rigid set of beauty rules. Who decided that everyone needs short hair after a certain age? Who decided that long hair automatically looks inappropriate? Who decided that gray hair must be hidden? The answer is nobody who actually understands individual style. The most beautiful women you see aren't necessarily following the same haircut formula. They're choosing shapes that make sense for them. And that confidence is visible. A face-framing cut can also be incredibly useful if you don't want to commit to bangs. Maybe you like the softness bangs provide but don't want the maintenance. Longer face-framing pieces can give you some of that same visual effect while allowing you to move the hair away from your face whenever you want. And that flexibility matters more than people realize. Because your hairstyle shouldn't control your life. You should be able to tuck it behind your ear, move it to one side, wear it straight, add waves, put it into a low ponytail. You should still feel like yourself. And speaking of feeling glamorous, our next haircut takes the volume up a notch. Haircut 5, the long voluminous layers. Now we're going glamorous. This is the version for the woman who still loves long hair and isn't interested in giving it up just because she's over 50. And why should she? Long hair can look absolutely stunning at any age. The key is making sure it has shape. Because long hair without movement can sometimes become visually heavy. It can pull the eye downward. It can make the ends look tired. And when the hair is naturally fine, having too much length without enough structure can sometimes make it appear even flatter. That's where long, carefully blended layers come in. The goal isn't to create a mountain of hair on top of your head. It's to create movement that travels through the length. Think softness. Think flow. Think of the hair moving when you walk rather than simply hanging there. And this is one of those styles that can look completely different depending on the finish. With large soft waves, it becomes glamorous. With a smooth blowout, it becomes elegant. With natural texture, it becomes relaxed and modern. And that's a powerful thing about a good haircut. It gives you possibilities. You don't need to look the same every day. Maybe one morning you're wearing a simple sweater and jeans and letting the layers fall naturally. Another evening, you add volume and a little shine, and suddenly the same haircut feels completely different. That's style. Not trying to look permanently young. Not trying to imitate someone else's face, body, or hair. Just having enough flexibility to express yourself. And there's something else I want women to hear. You don't have to apologize for enjoying beauty. You don't have to say, I'm too old for long hair. You don't have to say, at my age, I should just keep it simple. If you love beautiful hair, enjoy beautiful hair. If getting your hair done makes you feel good, that's enough reason. Confidence doesn't have an expiration date. Neither does glamour. But perhaps you're not looking for glamorous. Maybe you want something with a little more personality. Something that says you've still got some edge. If that's you, the next haircut might be your favorite. Haircut 6, the butterfly shag. Now we're moving into something more playful. The butterfly shag combines the softness of layered hair with a little more texture and attitude. And before you immediately say, a shag? At my age. Stay with me. Because I'm not talking about an extremely messy, aggressively chopped hairstyle that looks like you just walked out of a rock concert in 1977. I'm talking about a modern, controlled version. The difference is intention. A good textured haircut doesn't look messy. It looks deliberately effortless. That's a huge distinction. You want texture that creates movement without making the hair look neglected. You want layers that give the style personality without making the ends look stringy. And for some women, that little bit of texture can actually make the hairstyle feel much more modern. Especially if you've been wearing the same perfectly smooth hairstyle for years. Sometimes what you need isn't more polish. You need a little life, a little movement, a little imperfection. Because here's something interesting about getting older. Many women become more confident about what they actually like. At 25, you might have copied whatever hairstyle everyone else was wearing. At 35, you might have chosen the safest option. At 45, you may have been too busy with work and family to think about your hair at all. But at 55, 60, 65, Maybe you're finally thinking, what do I actually want? And I love that. Your hairstyle can reflect that. It can say, I'm not trying to impress everyone. I'm choosing what makes me feel good. That's a much more powerful kind of beauty. Of course, texture needs to be adapted to the hair you actually have. If your hair is very fine, too many short layers may remove the density you need. If your hair is thick, the right amount of layering can help remove heaviness and reveal movement. If your hair is naturally curly or wavy, the haircut needs to respect how that texture behaves instead of forcing it into a completely different shape. Your hair is not a blank canvas. It's part of the design. And once you understand that, choosing a haircut becomes much easier. But we've reached the final transformation. And this is the one I would pay very close attention to. Because it takes everything we've talked about, the movement, the softness, the volume, and the face framing, and brings it together in one particularly elegant version. Haircut 7. The soft feathered butterfly cut. This is the one. The soft feathered butterfly cut. And if you ask me which version best captures the spirit of the butterfly trend while still feeling elegant and wearable for a woman over 50, this would be one of my strongest contenders. Why? Because it doesn't try too hard. The layers are visible, but they aren't aggressive. The face framing is noticeable, but it doesn't dominate the face. The volume is there, but it doesn't look artificial. And the ends have movement without appearing thin and fragile. It's that balance that makes this version so beautiful. There's something very flattering about hair that moves softly around the face. It creates a sense of lightness. It can make the entire hairstyle feel fresher. And perhaps most importantly, it doesn't scream, I'm trying to look younger. It simply says, I take care of myself. That's a much better goal. Because looking younger isn't really what most women want. What they want is to look good. They want to look rested. They want to look vibrant. They want their hairstyle to reflect the woman they see themselves as, not the age written on a document. And that's why I saved this version for last. It has enough movement to feel modern, enough softness to feel elegant, and enough versatility to work with different personalities. You can wear it polished. You can wear it relaxed. You can add waves. You can smooth it. You can tuck one side behind your ear. You can let the layers fall naturally. And every version still feels like the same haircut. That's what makes a haircut genuinely useful. It doesn't just look good in the salon chair. It continues to look good when you're living your actual life. And that's the standard I want you to use when you're considering any haircut, not whether it looked incredible on someone else's Instagram photograph, but whether you can realistically live with it. Because the most beautiful haircut in the world isn't useful if you hate styling it. And after looking at all 7 of these styles, there's something much more important than deciding which haircut is the prettiest. It's understanding what a haircut can actually do for you. A good haircut doesn't change who you are. It simply helps the outside reflect how you feel on the inside. Maybe you've spent the last few years putting yourself last. Maybe your hair became something you didn't think about because there were more important things to deal with. Maybe you stopped experimenting because you thought, what's the point? But there is a point, not because you need to look younger, not because you need to compete with women 20 years younger, and certainly not because anyone else gets to decide what you should look like. You deserve to enjoy your appearance. There is something incredibly refreshing about looking into the mirror and actually liking what you see, even if it's just a haircut, even if it's just a little volume, even if it's simply changing the way your layers fall around your face. Small changes can have a surprisingly big effect on confidence. And confidence is one of those things that people notice before they even understand why they noticed it. You walk differently. You smile differently. You hold your head differently. You stop worrying so much about whether everyone is judging you. And suddenly the haircut isn't just about hair anymore. It's about how you feel wearing it. That's why I don't want you to look at these 7 styles and ask, which haircut makes me look 10 years younger? Ask a better question. Which haircut makes me feel most like myself right now? That question changes everything. Because maybe you love the long, glamorous layers. Maybe the soft bob makes you feel lighter. Maybe the lob gives you exactly the freedom you've been missing. Maybe the textured shag brings back a little personality you thought you'd lost. Or maybe, like me, you keep coming back to that soft feathered butterfly cut. There isn't one correct answer, and that's the beauty of having choices. One final thought before you reach for the scissors. Please don't confuse inspiration with imitation. A haircut can look incredible on one woman and completely different on another. That's not because one woman is more beautiful. It's because hair density, texture, face shape, length, and lifestyle all matter. The smartest thing you can do is take the idea to a professional and ask how it can be adapted to your hair. Show them the look you love. Explain what you want to keep. Explain what you don't want to lose. And most importantly, don't be afraid to say, I want something easy to maintain. That's valuable information. Your stylist isn't just cutting hair. They're helping you create something you'll have to live with every morning. And if you know that you don't want to spend 30 minutes styling your hair every day, say it. If you want to keep your length, say it. If you want more volume around your face, say it. If you're worried about your hair looking thinner, say it. The more clearly you communicate, the more likely you are to walk away with a haircut you actually love. And remember, you don't have to make a dramatic change all at once. Sometimes the most successful transformation is surprisingly subtle. A few strategic layers, a softer shape, a slightly different length, a better face frame, and suddenly you look in the mirror and think, there I am. That's the feeling we're really chasing. Not youth, not perfection, recognition. The feeling that the woman in the mirror finally looks like the woman you know yourself to be. So, after exploring all 7 of these Brad Mondo-inspired butterfly variations, which one would you actually choose? The classic butterfly for maximum movement? The soft layered bob for effortless sophistication? The butterfly lob for versatility? The face framing cut for a softer appearance? The long voluminous layers for glamour? The modern butterfly shag for personality? Or the soft feathered butterfly cut that brought everything together? Personally, I think the most important takeaway is this. You don't need to abandon your personal style just because you've reached a certain age. You don't have to automatically cut your hair short. You don't have to hide your gray. You don't have to choose the safest possible haircut. And you definitely don't have to dress or style yourself according to someone else's idea of what a woman over 50 should look like. You can evolve. You can experiment. You can change your mind. And yes, you can still have fun with your hair. Because beauty isn't something you age out of. It's something you get to redefine. And sometimes, all it takes is one new haircut to remind you of that. If one of these 7 styles caught your attention, tell me which one in the comments. I genuinely want to know which one you'd choose. And if you enjoyed this video, subscribe because there are plenty more beautiful, age-appropriate hairstyle transformations coming your way. And don't forget to share this with a woman who has been saying, maybe I'm too old for a new haircut. Because she isn't. None of us are. And I'll see you in the next one.